Welcome to The Chairlift, the podcast where we talk all things snowboarding. I'm your host, Snowboard Mom, and snowboarder for 28 years. On this week's episode, I speak with Natalie Allport, who was traditionally a slopestyle competitor and has now transitioned to a world-class freeride competitor. She talks about the International Free Skiers and Snowboarders Association, which has been making bold moves to bring this discipline to the world stage. So please welcome Natalie Allport to the show. And before you start listening to this interview, I just wanted to mention that we did have some audio bloopers. Strangely enough, I forgot to plug in my mic after having some issues. So I hope that the quality isn't too bad and that you can listen in on this conversation. Hey, Natalie, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, so I have a skill testing question for you.
Okay.
What city are you in and what time zone is it?
Okay. Ottawa at EST. And it would definitely, I've been confused of what time zone I've been in the last weeks.
I know it's been like a wild couple of weeks. Tell us, where have you been and what have you been doing? I don't even know when do we start? I'll let you dictate, how has your season been and where have you been?
Yeah. It feels like the season just started, but I keep forgetting that winters fly by in a snap. I feel like I'm going to wake up and it's spring and all of a sudden it's the off season and I'm going to be like, what happened in all these days throughout the winter? And so, yeah, I still feel like it's like November, but now it's February, which is crazy to me. The season started a little bit late with Tremblant opening a week later. As most people know, we kind of had a slow start to the season here. But yeah, tried to get up there as much as I could, watched all the snow going to the west, and I was very jealous. But at the same time, I knew I had a trip planned out west, so it made me feel better about it. And then, of course, I think I headed west the 26th, so right after Christmas, spent a few days in Edmonton and Banff, and then based myself in Revy for the month of January. And of course, we really didn't get much more than maybe a couple centimeters here and there the whole month of January. So everyone was calling it dry January after December to remember. And of course, I've already been sent all the videos and photos of how much it snowed the minute I left. So that's been the rundown of where I've been. And then between that, I had two competitions in Revy. I also ended up hopping into a rail jam out there, but two free ride competitions in Revy, and then one in Kicking Horse, and then came home for 17 hours to get my park board, drop off my paddleboard, and go to Regina for a rail comp, which I just got back from 5 hours ago. Yeah.
And that was like the grind with Canada Snowboard, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't even know which which one. Okay. I know you've had some wins and then other ones where, and maybe I jinxed you. I was watching the one where it didn't go as well. Let's look at the format of these free ride contests. So it's with the International, I hate to say the word ski, but Free Ski and Snowboard Association. And you've been doing some of these, you started doing the free ride contest last season, right?
Yeah. Last season was my first season. And then, the IFSA basically has the license to run all the Freeride World Tour qualifier events in the Americas. So it's all part of the same Freeride World Tour umbrella. But then Freeride World Tour themselves run all the qualifiers and challengers and everything in Europe. And then IFSA runs kind of everything in North and South America.
Cool. And so tell me what the format is of this, because I know, and maybe contrast it to something like Slopestyle, where, it's not all or nothing in Slopestyle. You have a second chance sometimes.
Yeah. Slopestyle is very different. I remember going to Slopestyle comps and, you get there a week early and you get used to the course and you have a day where you're just hitting things straight air and then you're building your run, putting it together. You've probably done your run 100 times before you actually have to do it in your competition run. And then, you get 2 or 3 chances to land it. Freeride is the exact opposite. So I'll contrast it like the Freeride World Tour versus like the qualifier and the challenger events here in the Americas. So basically just the way the insurance works in North and South America, we can't run it exactly how they do in Europe and on the tour. So in Europe and on the tour, you just look through binoculars, you get pictures and you scope your line. And then day of the competition, you go. In North and South America, we do get to like, there's a mandatory like boots on snow for the insurance, especially in the US, I think. So we do have to like go down. But of course, we've been moving because, I mean, this is a deeper conversation that we might get into, but Freeride is very likely getting into the Olympics. And since BIS bought it, it has to move towards the same European standard. So they are trying to make it a little bit more visual because otherwise athletes who come from the qualifiers in North America are disadvantaged when they go to Europe and some of those events because all of a sudden they're not used to like just looking through binoculars. So lately what we've been doing is you kind of get like one or two inspection lines. So maybe they'll run an inspection line right down the middle of the venue. So you can at least get underneath some of the features and like look at them closer than you would if you were just looking through binoculars. And then some events, if like the conditions aren't good or whatever, they're not trying to preserve snow, you might actually be able to ride all around. You're not allowed to like do your run or ride full speed or like hit any of the drops, but you can kind of like get up on things. But so far it's been kind of nice this season of not having as much of that because it preserves the venue. You get a bunch of skiers like in there and they put bomb holes in the landings and then you have to go on it. Kind of sucks. And then it's just one run. So it's just one run because they can't run that many people down a venue. It would ruin it, right? Like you go up for a second run and again, there's bomb holes everywhere. So that's one of the things about Freeride is you can't put that many people through an actual venue.
How do you feel about it though? Like, do you think that, just having one run through the face of the mountain will disadvantage like the progression of free riding for competitors?
Yeah, I think it's like the original spirit of free riding has always kind of been like one run, not just for preserving the venue, but it's kind of like who can just like look at the base and then just do something. Kind of similar if you were going out into the backcountry, you might not get a second chance at a certain line. Like you kind of just gotta look at it and like send it. So in that scenario, I definitely get like the kind of the core culture, but I agree. I think like multiple runs, you would definitely see the more progression. People are going to push things. They're not as worried about like, should I do go off this cliff or should I like throw a backy or do a 3? Yeah, there's a bunch of different factors at play in that, but I think that is what separates it, I guess, from slopestyle and all those other ones. Otherwise it'd kind of be like, I guess natural selection is kind of the bridge between slopestyle and the more core like Freeride World Tour type stuff.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like they have the head-to-head sort of format, but it's been changed a few times, I think, since the inception of natural selection and like how they did it. Now they do all of these sort of special location matchups for the qualifiers. I don't know. I have my own thoughts about that. Like, I think personally, and other people will disagree, like, other people like to see different locations, different culture, like just different riding styles and adventures. But I feel as though it was a more equal matchup when they got all the riders together on one base and it was one day of just head to head and cutting down eventually to the best of the best in one day. But that's just me. I don't know. And I think it breaks up a little bit of the story when you only get one head to head every week or so that is released on Red Bull TV or whoever is broadcasting the event at point in time. Yeah. So, all right, Natalie, what made you decide to get back into competing? Like, so maybe tell us a little bit of your story of like, when did you start competing in slopestyle? And then when did that end? And then what made you decide, okay, like, let's get back into it. And then we'll get into more questions. I'll leave you with that first.
Yeah. Yeah. I started competing, I guess, locally around here in Ottawa when I was a teenager. And I had switched from skiing to snowboarding when I was like 12, I think. Um, and then, yeah, just kind of like there was competitions and I'm competitive and I wanted to join them. So I just started doing that and going to bigger and bigger ones. And then when I was 16 or 17, I guess I was in grade 12, I believe, I won Billabong Flaunted, and that kind of earned me a trip to California. And then that summer's Slopestyle was announced as an Olympic sport for the 2014 Olympics, and they started a whole new national team program. And I think it was actually you who messaged me on like Facebook or something and was like, "Did you see that you made the junior national team?" And because I never even got an email or anything. Like there was no, like the press release was like put out without actually contacting people. So yeah, that was kind of crazy. I think I was sitting at my cottage in the summer, and that kind of changed my trajectory a little bit. I think my plan was to like move out to Whistler and, try to be a pro snowboarder in the traditional like filming, I don't know, like riding sense. And then all of a sudden I was like, okay, we're all in on competing in slopestyle. I need to get a coach. Like you like had to for insurance and everything. There's just so many logistics. I all of a sudden had to plan out. So I actually ended up staying in Ontario for a couple of years, at least basing myself. I would go to Colorado and Whistler and the competitions and wherever. And at the time it was called Simple Snowboarding. Now it's called Senders Society. So yeah, riding with that team for a couple seasons until kind of the junior and development national team programs had more support and coaching, and we would go out to Whistler for jump camps and stuff like that. And yeah, did junior world champs twice, a coffee World Cup starts, try to make a push for the 2014 Olympics. I was injured for the vast majority of the year leading into it. I got into the last two World Cups right before, but it was kind of like you got to win to get in, because I didn't have, all those results from the ones that I missed when I was injured. So of course, like, I signed my Team Canada Olympic team, like contract. Anyone who had that chance, because the last World Cup was so close to the Olympics, kind of had to like mentally prepare as if you were going to go. So that was a cool experience. And then, unfortunately didn't make it. There was two women's spots that year for Team Canada, one which was taken by Spencer O'Brien. And then there was kind of like 5 or 6 of us fighting second spot. Yeah, I ended up spending, I think during the time of the Olympics, I separated my shoulder. So I was just sitting on my couch watching it. I came back from that, and then 2015 season started and things just kind of felt a little bit different. I was like super homesick. I'd be in Whistler and it's like living quote unquote my dream. I was just snowboarding and training and traveling. And I just felt like being home. I would go to do a trick or do something and I would replay all these falls in my head. I just like honestly didn't want to be there. And then of course I'd given everything to it. So I was like, I'm going to like ride it out for the whole season, like give my all. I ended up having a decent season. Unfortunately, saw a couple like really bad injuries of friends that kind of like put the nail in the coffin of me like making that decision. I was like, I don't know if I like want to risk my life for this anymore. I don't know what I'm feeling. At the time, there wasn't a lot of like mental health support of like, I just didn't feel like I could go and talk with my coaches or do these things despite having a good relationship with them. Just thinking like in that sport mindset, would they cut you because you just don't feel like you have that competitive edge, or you're scared, or so that's such a big part of snowboarding. So I ended up like messaging her at the end of the season, hey, don't like consider me again for the national team next season. I'm going to take a break. And basically that break turned into a 7-year break where I would go snowboarding a couple times a year, but I was competing pretty full time in CrossFit in that space. It kind of like took over my life. I was like, what did I fill all this time that I was snowboarding with? So it was going to the gym. So I was doing that and then trying not to get injured from snowboarding and all those other activities. So I think that was a little bit part of it. One, a little bit of resentment towards like the things that happened. I hadn't healed that relationship. And then 2, I also just didn't want to hurt myself since I was competing at CrossFit and try to like build a career in that as well. And then it kind of took like tearing my shoulder and then the pandemic happening. So gyms were closed. I was rehabbing, couldn't really do much upper body stuff and CrossFit stuff. That I just started riding again, like with my brother and stuff, and like actually pushing a little bit more, like just doing some tricks that I used to do. And I don't know where like that click happened, but I just like fell back in love with it. Ended up doing APIC Rail Jam in 2023 in Montreal and winning. And I just like remember that feeling. I was like, oh, it feels like where I'm meant to be. Like I love being in a like dropping in and the pressure and like people are watching and trying to like throw down your best tricks. And Yeah, I think during the end of that season, I just started thinking about Freeride. It was something I'd always been interested in. I had seen a couple of the girls, like Marion Hardy, who's like, she won national selection last year. She is one of the most winning Freeride World Tour athletes. And like, we had World Cup starts together. Michaela Davis, me, and I was just riding with her. And Rebel Stokes, she's from Australia and she's on the World Tour this season. And she also has a background in slopestyle. And I was like, I feel like with my legs are very strong. I can land a lot of big clips. Like I think I've stronger legs on a lot of the guys on the tour. And then I was like, I have like the trick background, which is something that like I want to bring to free ride. And then I just need to like actually learn how to ride big mountains because I had ridden powder like maybe 2 days of my life. And like slopestyle, I would take days off if it was snowing because it was like, oh, we can't train. Let me take a day off when it's a powder, which sounds so crazy now. And so I just had to like learn how to actually ride steeps and stuff. And I basically threw myself 100% in it because last season I just like went all in onto the qualifier series and literally had never set foot really on that big mountain terrain until the competition.
You know, for you to talk about some of the struggles that you had when you lived in Whistler and think back how, like, you were so young, right? Like, how old were you?
Yeah, I was with the national team program from 17 to 21.
Yeah. And so, at that age, it's a time really where it's a becoming of age time. Really, it is. It's where you develop a lot of the sense of like who you are. Um, and it's funny that you mentioned that, you didn't feel like you could talk to your coaches about your mental health struggles because one of my previous guests, and the show hasn't come out yet, mentioned that when she was on the national team that she didn't get the support that she needed either. And so she essentially left the national team to get the support that she needed. Um, and so what are your thoughts on what can an organization like Canada Snowboard do to better support their high performance athletes?
I think it's like being proactive. Because for me, it was not even like I didn't even realize that in like my feelings of homesickness and not wanting to be there, like it was early signs of depression. I thought like, oh, I got depressed after I left snowboarding and was like losing my identity and who am I and going through that. I was like, no, that it got worse. But I definitely like was already experiencing these things and it can be linked to a number of things. And so I think if I had been educated about that, that would have been a difference of like being able to recognize and know, like I know now, like things that I need on a daily basis to be proactive about taking care of my mental health and making, oh, I'm feeling a little bit anxious. Like, let me check, like, have I been doing all these different things to really prioritize self-care and build balance and create routines that kind of like help me mitigate and understand what I'm feeling. And like go through the highs and lows rather than get stuck in the lows. So, yeah, I think like proactive education, like educating coaches and having them speak with language that is like very like almost like they're like they're vulnerable so that their athletes are vulnerable back and they're like trying to make a welcoming place. Like maybe they're having those conversations before an athlete feels like they need to go to them. And I do think that is happening. I've been doing like some mental sessions with Jeremy Shepard. He's the head of off snow for the national team program. And he took over the year that I left. And he's like made some comments to me about how different it is. Like he was like, I think you were one of the last groups of that era that it was in that older mindset. And now like, every day the coaches are asking athletes how they're feeling and that dictates what they're going to do. Like, okay, don't push it. Like you're not feeling mentally there. Like you're not going to go for your best tricks today. But, in my time, it's kind of like, oh, you did a back five and clipped your heels and like hit your head. We'll go up and do it a bunch more times because you need to like land it. And I'm like, I'm feeling off. Like I'm not having a good day. I'm in pain. And yeah, it was just a different mentality. And now it's much more based on, how athletes are feeling and how they're doing and just a different sport culture, which I like to see. And I'm sure that there's still tons of room for improvement, but I think we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think snowboarding has really grown. Not just that, like
when you came into the national team, I want to say it was when Slopestyle was being introduced. And prior to that, it was really border snowboard cross, slalom, and half pipe. And those three disciplines, I mean, aside from half pipe should have younger riders, but because of the low access to half pipes, like most of the national team riders were in their late 20s and sometimes even in their 30s. And so at that age, like you have often built or, been able to figure out your coping mechanisms to that high level of stress and being like a high performance athlete, right? Um, and so I think it's super important for coaches of such young athletes of like, we're seeing teenagers that are like 15, 16 years old, just being on the national team. And then by the time they're 18, like they're winning the World Cup stops, they're winning the Grand Prix, they're winning like X Games and whatnot. So that's a really young age, and that's a lot of pressure for teenagers that may not have developed those coping mechanisms. Um, okay, so now that you're in the free ride scene, what are your goals and aspirations? Yeah, I definitely want to make the tour. Last year, I got a good chance. I didn't think I would in my first season because the way the points work. So in the qualifiers, there's kind of like 4 levels of competitions: 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star. So I started with the 2 stars. You can't get into 4 stars if you don't have a good ranking, and it's your 3 top results that give you kind of your global ranking. So yeah, I started with 2 stars. Ended up doing well. I think I like won or podiumed at all my 2 stars, and then ended up getting into the last 4-star of the season. I think I did like a 3-star that kind of pushed me above the cut line for challengers. So what challengers are, it's kind of like the playoffs of the season. So there's 3 events at the end of the season. That's like invite only to, I believe it's like the top 8 in North and South America, or in North America, plus whoever won the South American series gets an invite. Whoever gets cut from the world tour before the finals comes back down to the challengers to like refight for their spot. And then they might invite like a junior world champ or some, like they might just like give 1 or 2 invites in there. So there's usually like around 10 women. Yeah,
Cool.
usually around 10 women in the challenger. So I actually was above the cut line, which I was shocked. So I was like, okay, well, I guess I next week have to go to New Mexico for the 4-star, because I was realizing if I go to this 4-star and podium, I'll keep my spot. If not, like if I don't go and some people below me get higher points, then I'm not going to make it to challenger. So that was kind of a surprise, because I kind of had given up in my head of being able to like have a shot at the tour in my first season. But yeah, it all ended up working out. A very expensive week. I have just going to New Mexico last minute and coming back. But yeah, I was glad that I did it. And then basically was home for 3 days and packed my bags for a month on the road for the 3 challenger tour stops. First one I got 4th, and then the last 2 I fell. And it's best 2 out of 3, and you need to win. There's only 1 new woman spot per year, which is quite unfortunate and kind of something that we all are definitely fighting to get more spots for. But yeah, only having 1 new women's spot is such a battle. You got to have the perfect season and the perfect challengers. So this season, I won the first 2 events of the season, won the first 4-star of the season. I fell at Kicking Horse, but I already have more points than I did last season to get into challengers. So I'll go to the 4-star in Snowboard and then hopefully skip the New Mexico and Colorado one at the end of the season to be able to save money before Challenger starts. And then we'll be, again, 3 competitions in Western North America to try to fight for the tour spot.
So talk to me about how many spots do the men have? How many do the women have?
Yeah, there's 2 new men's spots for snowboarding each from challengers, and 1 women's spot. And skiing, there's 2 ski women and like maybe 4 ski men, I want to say. So that's another thing in Freeride is like eating is definitely prioritized over snowboarding. And then, of course, like the women have a lower field count than the men, which is super frustrating. I think on the tour right now, there are 7 women and 12 men in snowboarding, and then 12 or maybe 15. I'm not sure how many men, but I think 12 or 15. And then same amount of ski women, and then like 20 something ski men. Definitely there's a cap, like how many people you can put on a venue and total amount of people. But unfortunately, the breakdown is majority ski men, then ski women, then snowboard men, then snowboard women. So Europe is in the same boat. They get 1 new women's spot as well onto the tour. So it makes it super hard. Like you fall in an event, and like I said before, it's 1 run and that's all you got. And that's kind of like you might have the perfect season going into challengers and then you crash. So that's just how it goes right now.
Like, I think it should be challenging to get in. But one thing I'm going to say is I really do believe that there should be the same number of spots for men and women. And the reason I say that is because, so like I come from a generation of snowboarders. I started 28 years ago, and I started competing like in the year 2000, while you started competing like 10 years later. And in that time, so when I was competing, there were rarely any women's events for big air. Slopestyle events didn't even exist. Like when I basically retired from competitive snowboarding was when slopestyle started to show up. And like, yeah, there were women that were solid, but they never got the opportunity to showcase their talent. And because there were so few events, well, you had very few women to challenge them. And so that doesn't like raise the bar for women's snowboarding, right? Like if you only have a few of them, no one is there to push the envelope. There's only a few to push the envelope.
Yeah.
And as we saw like big air and slopestyle really be incorporated, and like because slopestyle was incorporated as an Olympic event, then well, yeah, they had to have a women's category. And then we saw boom, like skyrocketing levels of performance from the women, first by Jamie Anderson, and then like Anna Gasser just came onto the scene and was like, move over, Jamie Anderson. You're a safe bet, 540s and 720s. Like, the double corks are coming.
Yeah.
And then it was like every woman on the tour was like pulling off a double cork, right? What do you think is the limiting factor for something like the IFSA to include more women qualifiers?
Yeah, I mean, it trickles down from the tour. So to me, like the tour needs to give more, like we need to have more quality on the tour itself so that we can have like 2 new women from Europe, 2 new women from the Americas onto it. I think like that would be that would be a progression for sure. I'm on the IFSA Riders Committee, and something that we talked about during a recent meeting was last year. So I wasn't, again, like last year is my first year of freeriding, so I don't have like previous knowledge of what they're doing before. But someone who does mentioned on the call that apparently last year they gave more women spots, even just to the 4-star events. Like usually maybe they'll give like between 6 and 10, and they started giving like 12, 13, 14 spots. And we saw the level increase. So I wasn't part of it in the year before, but according to everyone, last year was like the highest level that they saw from the women's side, and women's snowboarding in the challengers as well. And then when I went to Chile, I did a 4-star down there, and everyone from Americas came, and it was like almost like a challenger level event. Like the riding was such high level. Everyone was going for it, doing their best runs. And then this season, someone was commenting that they went back. So basically, I think that there's a rule with how many people register for the comp. So like let's say Revelstoke will say, okay, we can only host 100 people at this competition. The way that it breaks down between categories is based on how many people register and then a percentage of that. But apparently last year, someone on the board really pushed for them to like ignore that percentage to increase the percentage for women snowboarding so that we can push the level and get more people into it, because it's a category that's historically been it's been low, and they haven't like pushed the progression, and they haven't let enough women in. And so we need to like take that percentage and up it to get more people to register, right? It's one of those things where the ski men can say what they want and be like, well, not as many girls register, and like we're not getting all the spots that we want. Well, like because this whole sport has been catered to ski men for so many years. And so now we need to like get more spots so that we can see the progression. And so one rider, Audrey, who's on the world tour this year, and she's part of the IFSA riders committee, she said that she's like ran all the numbers and like shown how the progression increased when they let more women into the events. And I definitely have experienced that. I've noticed that a little bit this season, where in revving kicking horse, you can kind of get by and get like a decent point result, like get 5th place or whatever it is, by kind of like doing your safety run. But last year, like especially at Challengers, there were no safety runs. Like you got to like send it, because there's so many like women in there that like there's a higher chance of more people landing a really good run, versus when you only let in like 8 women into an event, you know, half might fall, because again, it's one run. That's all that happens. You land on a rock, you fall, you like me and kicking horse, you land where there's faceted snow, you go through and you punch front. So like things happen, and so there's going to be a lot of falls, and so you can kind of get by and like almost make it to Challengers, just like playing it safe and doing a safety run, which wasn't necessarily the case last season. So yeah, I'd like to see definitely more women's spots increase, so that more women will be entering competitions. I think a lot of people fall out. Like I saw a lot of people who were great riders last year and they can't even get into the 4 stars this year, and it's definitely a bummer for them. They're used to being able to get into all these events, and so, you know, are they going to stick around if they can't get into these higher level events still? It's really difficult. So yeah, more spots there, more spots on the tour. I think we are moving that direction, because I have heard with the inclusion of FIS World Champs coming up, they'll be the first Freeride FIS World Champs next season, where they'll have 10 women. I think it's still not equal. Like it's not, there's more than 10 ski men, but it's getting there, because I think for the Olympics, it has to be equal. Like it's going to have to be like 15, 15, 15, 15 or something like that. So they're slowly having to make those changes. It's one of the only good things, you know, of this coming in, is that they do have to mandate the equalities.
So tell me about this so-called rumor that Freeride might be in the next Olympics. Would that be for both snowboarding and 2-planking?
Yeah, for both in 2030, which is 2030 will be in the French Alps.
Okay, sweet.
It's not like 100% confirmed, but it's like, the rumor is maybe this fall it's going to get announced. So next year, they already confirmed that there'll be the first ever FIS World Championships for Freeride, which is going to be in Andorra in 2026. So next February. So basically all the results from this season count towards that. If you're not currently on the world tour, one of those like 7 women, you're kind of screwed for points in some ways, because there's going to be only 3 spots left. And if your country's already well represented, like we already have 2 Canadians on the world tour, on the women's side, they want to get more representation from other countries. So it's going to be pretty hard to try to snag one of those world champ spots. But regardless, yeah, like that's the progression that they're moving towards. They're definitely, that's been the rumor, is that it should be confirmed by the end of the year, hopefully.
Would be very cool. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you're gonna get some interesting folks maybe getting in on the Freeride tour. I'm wondering if we're gonna see, you know, some of the natural selection riders in the female side, because I haven't seen any in the ISFA like 4 stars. When I was just like browsing quickly, I didn't see like any of the typical, like, you know, Leanne Pelosi's and Marie-France of the world.
Yeah. Sorry. I think it'll be interesting. I don't know. Like it's so different in some ways. It's interesting. Like I think about it too, like personally, I think the actual selection tour is much more like in my depth of riding, like something open, something playful, something freestyle, like that, somewhere where like I could have gone straight for slopestyle and adapted a lot more quickly. Freeride, I'm like on like crazy steep stuff. Sometimes it's like pure ice. And like competitions just run, right? So it's not necessarily like showcasing who can ride like the best perfect powder conditions and like, throw down some sick tricks off cliffs. Like sometimes it's like survival mode out there, and you're riding stuff that like on a day to day you wouldn't ride. Like if I was filming or something, I wouldn't be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go up and do that, where it's like complete hard pack right now and hasn't snowed in a month. Definitely wouldn't be my first choice of places to ride.
Like they pick the run, and then don't look at the snow conditions. Like they pick the run like 6 months earlier. And then like the day of, it's like, hey, if you had like, 60-mile-an-hour winds on that face and all the like snow has been swept away, but you're still riding there, right?
Actually happened. I was supposed to stay in after Chile to go to Argentina, and that happened at the comp that I ended up flying home instead of staying for the extra 10 days. And that happened. It was crazy. Like it was like almost like 100-mile-per-hour winds or something. It was like insane, and like everything got scoured. And it was like I was watching videos and like put pure ice through chutes. I'm like, that is terrifying. Like, and especially on a snowboard with one edge, not two, like skiers do. They'll make minor changes. Like, I know even like the World Tour, like sometimes at Kicking Horse, if they have really good snow, they want to host it on ozone. But often they'll go to where we did live, where you watched, on T1 South. That's the same run that they've been using the last few years because they just haven't had the snow over on ozone. And ozone is just like a couple big features. So you really kind of need it to be put in versus you can kind of find some small mediums on T1 South. But, yeah, it's a tough one, I think, because of the resorts I'll host it versus like natural selection. I mean, actually, I was just at the natural selection venue. I rode it last year and I rode it this year, and it's very tracked out this year. Everyone knows where it is now. It's super easy to get to from Revelstoke Resort. Like you can like it's like you could tour it multiple times in a day. Like you could lap it. So it's yeah, that's going to be interesting. I'm sure though that they have like some sort of deal because I do think although it's in the backcountry, it is kind of like it's RMR's kind of like tenure. So I think they are able to like, fence it out and kind of trust the community not to go in there before that event. But a lot of our like qualifier events at least are kind of on faces that you can't do that. You close it for the public just a few days before. So they're pretty tracked out. So the conditions you get are kind of like, unless it snows like the night before, it is what it is. Yeah, apart from a few things. Like we did have challengers at Silverton last year, which is like a private resort, but I think they blew their entire budget on that one. We had helicopters and it was like pure pow, like the deepest snow I've ever ran. But I don't think that's ever happening again for us. So
it's amazing though. Okay, so like you're from Ottawa and you ride Mont Tremblant. Are you considering riding elsewhere to get some more serious free riding experience, if you will?
yeah, that was kind of my decision of going to Revy. So kind of spending like the whole month of January out there before the competition started. I think the first free ride competition was the 19th and I was out there since the 1st. So that definitely helped, like getting used to just like riding steeps, making quick turns. Like I find at Tremblant, like I mostly just ride park when I'm at home, to be honest. But if I am riding like a groomer or even like a double black, it's still a groomed run. But I'm just like going really, really fast, following my brother and stuff, would just help me like manage moguls and stuff when we do get into that in Freeride. And definitely like I'm confident at carrying speed, but like there is nothing compared to the steepness and like cliffs and trees to dodge and things like that like you don't have that here. It's like, yeah, that was super new to me last year. I remember actually standing on T1 South at Kicking Horse last year, and it was my second ever free ride comp, and I was like, I have never been on anything this steep. My legs were so tired by the end. Last year was even worse conditions than this year. It was like pure ice. It was so terrifying. And I've never what is this sport? So crazy. And this year it was kind of crazy because I was like, my legs were not even tired. I didn't think about it once this whole month. And I didn't even think it was like that steep. It definitely is like a lot steeper. I find like watching it, like I remember watching Freeride before I did it, and I would see it. I'm like, oh, like why are they going slow? Like it's fine.
Yeah.
And then you get on it and you know that It doesn't
It doesn't
translate.
give it justice, right? Like
No.
the camera does not give steepness justice.
And no, it's so steep in there. Like it's like there's a reason why you see people making like these slow controlled turns. Because if you pick up any speed in there, like and you get into where it gets shady or icy, like you're not slowing down. And so yeah, I definitely got a whole new respect for it once I went. So yeah, I'm just trying to spend more time on my snowboard out west. I think that was like a good training trip for me. And then same thing when I go to Utah, I'll try to ride for like the week before I go. But I'm sure eventually, I mean, with world champs coming, I think that there'll probably be the start of national team programs like in the next year. Freeride will be incorporated, and my guess is like they'll be based in probably Whistler, same as everyone else or something like that. So yeah, TBD on where I might have to kind of like base myself if I want more freeride training. Right now, it's kind of working the best of both worlds to get to like ride some park and rails and come home and see my family and my dog and stuff and then go back out. But yeah.
Anyway, Natalie, I just went to Les Chic-Chocs in Quebec.
Oh, yeah. Look at that.
I highly recommend it. My mom was like, you should just move there and train. But the snow might be too deep.
Yeah, that's the thing about freeride. You actually kind of need variable, like, because if you're not used to variable, there's people on the world tour who like are such powder hounds that then you see they get exposed when it's like icy or, sketchy conditions. So that's the one thing. Being from the East, I'm like, oh, it's hard packed. Let's go. This is my jam. When it's deep pow, I'm like, actually, I need to learn how to ride deep pow. I remember last year at the first challengers and I dropped first of everyone and everyone's like, oh, you get powder. I'm like, guys, I've ridden powder like maybe 5 times in my entire life. I don't know how to land the powder. Like, I just hope it works out. And anyways, it worked out, but I was kind of like scared. I would almost rather, at that point, I'd rather land in hard pack. Now I'm like, no, give me the powder.
I'm going to give you a few quick questions. We're going to wrap this up because I know you're super tired. Like you flew in today, you're flying or driving to Toronto or Mississauga, I guess. For now I'm forgetting the name of the contest.
APIC, yeah. It goes on Sunday, but I'll drive down Thursday probably.
Awesome. And that's like a rail event as well. You know, if there's a lot of women competing.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be stacked actually. We got people flying in from Europe. Lori Bluen is competing. Who else? People are coming from all over for sure. I mean, it's 10K for first place, which is pretty rare for any snowboard event. So, like on the ski side, there's Tom Wallish, Jesper Tater. I don't know, people from all over. Snowboard side, we got Frank Jobin that just won X Games Street Style, Liam Brearley, last year's Crystal Globe winner. Yeah, it's gonna be heated. I thought that the grind was pretty stacked, but this one is definitely gonna have even deeper field, I think.
You can hold your own as long as you don't hit your head.
Yeah, let's try not to do that again. I think in the next few days, pretty easy. That was a rough one. I hit my head right on CBC. I was telling my grandma, I think my parents didn't give her the link to watch on purpose. So, but I told her, I was like, if you want to go back, I'm sure there's a slow-mo replay on the CBC website.
Great. So, quick questions for you. If you could ride only ice or super wet, heavy powder, and that's the only thing you could ever ride ever again, which would you choose?
I want to say I'm going to choose a super wet, heavy powder. That sounds like Sierra Cement, and I'm not mad about it.
Really? You and Daryl. Oh my gosh.
I don't.
Anyway.
Well, I've ridden enough ice. You know, I this next phase of life is just taking whatever powder I can get.
Okay, if you could never hit a jumper rail again or never hit powder again, which would you choose?
Oh no, that's so hard. Never hit a jumper rail again or never hit okay. It's gonna sound crazy, especially from someone who's doing a free ride, but actually, if I can never hit a jumper rail again, I don't know. That's like my home base. Like I have to go hit rails before my free ride comps to like feel like me, you know?
thrill park ride. Oh my gosh. Would you rather eat it in the park or eat it under the chairlift?
Oh,
Like which is worse?
well, park under the chairlift is the worst for sure. If you know what, to be honest, I don't mind falling in front of everyone as long as it doesn't really hurt too much. So if under the chairlift is powder and everyone's watching, that's fine. I'm not mad about it. But if it's in the park and it's gonna like put me up for 2 weeks, I would rather.
You know, when you're like flying down a groomer like at Mach 10 and like I always think like, what if I don't know, something like I would die. I think a lot worse than off a jump.
No, I agree with you. Like sometimes that trombone, like my brother and his friends will like see their speedometer or whatever, and they're like trying to go like over 100K or something. And I'm thinking, if I call my ex like on my snowboard right now, that would actually end my life. Like that would be it. Yeah, so maybe that would be worse if it's like hard tag groomer. Definitely.
No, but if I'm just thinking about who's watching, I think I would not like to be seen by all the OGs falling.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, strangers, who cares? Okay. I think that's it. I'm going to let you go because I know you need sleep and I know you need to get home. Are you going to ride? It's snowing in Ottawa. How often does it snow in Ottawa? Are you going to ride tomorrow?
Yeah, I think I should probably be smart and rest my head. Sadly. Very sad.
That is a good call.
Yeah. I'm
Okay,
not one, but 2 physio appointments for tomorrow. So, yeah, it's a big day.
Thank you so much for chatting with me. We'll chat again. Maybe I will bug you again at the end of the season and we can talk about how it went and what's next.
Yeah, sounds good. Hopefully big things after this.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Natalie Allport. You can follow her on Instagram at Natalie Allport, all one word. And if you really did like the show, please rate and review either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen from. Now, I'm sharing this review from Skibbity Sigma that said, "Really, it's an amazing podcast. I listen to every single one of them every day when I'm going up to the hill. I love it." Well, thank you, Skibbity Sigma. Now, if anyone else leaves a review, please take a screenshot of your review and send it to me either through Instagram at Kyanali Shred or through a text message, which you can get the link through the show notes. And you will have a chance to win a wonderful drink cozy courtesy of our friends at 686. And this cozy is pretty epic because it has a nice street shot from Dara Reed McLean. So rate and review our podcast, and I hope you listen in again because we'll have another episode coming out soon. Raise the bar and shred on.